Jurgen Habermas's Knowledge and Human Interests, 1971, marks a significant contribution to the field of critical theory, delving into the relationship between knowledge production and the underlying interests that shape human understanding. In this work, Habermas explores how different types of knowledge are not merely neutral or objective, but are deeply intertwined with human motivations and interests. He asserts that all human knowledge is driven by specific interests, which guide both the methods and goals of inquiry. Through this lens, Habermas builds a framework for understanding how knowledge systems function within society, critiquing traditional views of knowledge as detached from social and historical contexts. Habermas begins by examining the classical view of knowledge, particularly how the positivist approach dominates much of the modern scientific worldview. In this framework, knowledge is perceived as something objective, measurable, and free from bias. The positivist tradition, according to Habermas, presents knowledge as purely empirical, emphasizing the role of observation and experimentation in establishing facts. However, he critiques this model by arguing that it overlooks the role that human interests play in shaping the direction of scientific research. Rather than being neutral observers, scientists and researchers are influenced by the social, political, and economic contexts in which they operate. Central to Habermas's thesis is the notion that there are different types of knowledge, each associated with distinct human interests. He identifies three primary types of knowledge: empirical analytic, historical hermeneutic, and critical emancipatory. Each of these knowledge types corresponds to a specific kind of human interest, which in turn shapes the methods and purposes of inquiry. The first type of knowledge, empirical analytic, is closely associated with the natural sciences. This form of knowledge is grounded in observation, experimentation, and the formulation of universal laws. It is driven by a technical interest, meaning that its primary concern is control and prediction. The technical interest seeks to understand the world in ways that allow humans to manipulate and control their environment, improving material conditions, and solving practical problems. While this form of knowledge is incredibly powerful in terms of producing technological and scientific advancements, Habermas warns that it is limited in its ability to address the deeper, more existential questions of human life. The second type of knowledge, historical hermeneutic, is linked to the humanities and social sciences. This form of knowledge seeks to understand human behavior, culture, and history through interpretation, rather than empirical observation. It is driven by a practical interest, which involves mutual understanding and communication, in contrast to the technical interest, which is focused on control. The practical interest is concerned with fostering relationships and interpreting meaning. Historical hermeneutic knowledge aims to make sense of human experiences within their specific historical and cultural contexts, emphasizing the importance of shared understanding over objective truth. The third type of knowledge, critical emancipatory, is what Habermas considers the most significant for social theory. This knowledge is driven by an emancipatory interest, which seeks to uncover the ways in which human beings are constrained or oppressed by social and political structures. Critical emancipatory knowledge challenges the status quo. exposing hidden power dynamics and enabling individuals to achieve greater freedom and autonomy. This form of knowledge is not merely about understanding the world, but about transforming it. Habermas draws heavily from the Marxist tradition in articulating this perspective, arguing that critical theory must aim at human emancipation by revealing the ideological forces shape our understanding of reality. One of the key contributions of knowledge and human interests is Habermas's critique of positivism. He argues that the positivist tradition, which emphasizes empirical knowledge as the only valid form of inquiry, is deeply flawed. By reducing all forms of knowledge to empirical analytic methods, positivism overlooks the importance of historical and cultural interpretation, as well as the potential for social critique. Habermas contends that positivism's narrow focus on observable phenomena and measurable outcomes leads to a distorted view of human knowledge, one that is blind to the underlying interests that drive inquiry. Moreover, positivism's emphasis on technical control reinforces existing power structures as it neglects the role of emancipatory knowledge in challenging the status quo. Habermas's framework provides a way to understand how knowledge is both produced and constrained by societal forces. He argues that the technical, practical, and emancipatory interests that drive knowledge production are not fixed or natural, but are shaped by historical conditions. In this sense, knowledge is never purely objective, but is always influenced by the social and political contexts in which it is produced. Habermas is particularly concerned with the ways in which dominant forms of knowledge serve to reinforce existing power relations. For instance, the technical interest that drives empirical analytic knowledge often aligns with the interests of those in power, as it focuses on control and efficiency rather than questioning the social structures that sustain inequality. One of the central aims of knowledge and human interests is to reassert the importance of critical theory in the face of positivism's dominance. For Habermas, critical theory is essential because it allows for the possibility of social transformation. By revealing the interests that shape knowledge production, critical theory enables individuals to become aware of the forces that constrain them, opening up the possibility for greater freedom and autonomy. Habermas's emphasis on the emancipatory interest reflects his broader commitment to social justice, as he believes that knowledge should ultimately serve the goal of human liberation. In the later parts of the book, Habermas discusses the role of psychoanalysis as an example of critical emancipatory knowledge. He argues that psychoanalysis, like critical theory, seeks to uncover the hidden forces that shape human behavior, allowing individuals to gain insight into the ways in which they are constrained by unconscious processes. Through this process of self-reflection, individuals can achieve greater autonomy and freedom. For Habermas, psychoanalysis exemplifies the kind of knowledge that critical theory should aim to produce, knowledge that is not only about understanding the world, but also about transforming it in the interest of human emancipation. Habermas's work in knowledge and human interests is deeply rooted in the intellectual tradition of the Frankfurt School, particularly in its commitment to combining theory with practice. He builds on the insights of thinkers like Karl Marx, Max Weber, and Sigmund Freud to develop a comprehensive theory of knowledge that integrates empirical inquiry, interpretive understanding, and critical reflection. By highlighting the role of human interests in shaping knowledge, Habermas challenges the traditional view of knowledge as neutral and objective, offering instead a more dynamic and socially situated understanding of how knowledge functions within society.